It's April 29th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the meeting between President Yoon and opposition leader Lee Jae-myung. President Yun and the leader of the Democratic Party are scheduled to hold their first ever meeting later this afternoon, with the meetup set to show Yoon's commitment to working closer with the East Democratic Party following its win in the April general elections. U.S. President Joe Biden, in a phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, reiterated his clear position on the safety of civilians ahead of a potential Israeli invasion of Rafah. Biden also reaffirmed his ironclad commitment to Israel's security. Tesla's full self-driving software may become available sooner rather than later in China, with the American automaker meeting China's data security standards. President Yoon and main opposition party leader Lee Jae-myung will sit down on Monday to hold their first ever official meeting, as both emphasize the need to discuss pressing issues related to people's livelihoods. Meeting at 2 p.m. at the presidential office, the two are expected to talk over tea for about an hour, although the meeting could stretch on. The unprecedented meeting between Yoon and Lee comes after the opposition Democratic Party of Korea won 175 out of the 300 seats at the National Assembly earlier this month, making Yoon the first president in Korean history to work with an opposition-led parliament throughout all of his five-year term. While the presidential office said there should not be a preset list of agendas as to not constrain the conversation, the opposition party insisted that there should be, which should include a universal one-time payout of 250,000 Korean won or $182 for all Korean citizens, as well as special counsel investigations into the death of a Marine and suspected stock manipulation allegedly involving First Lady Kim Kwon-hee. President Yoon is set to host Angolan President João Lourenço for a summit on Tuesday at the Yongsan presidential office. In a written announcement on Saturday, the top office said that during the first ever meeting between the leaders, they will, quote, discuss ways to enhance practical cooperation in various fields, such as trade and investment, shipbuilding, and energy. President Lourenço's three-day trip to South Korea began Sunday. Now, Angola is known for its resources, with abundant reserves of minerals such as nickel and cobalt, while it is also an exporter of crude oil. U.S. President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a phone call discussed ongoing hostage and ceasefire negotiations and the looming offensive against Rafah, while Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas stressed that only the U.S. can stop Israel from attacking Gaza's southern border city. Lee Seung-jae reports.
U.S. President Joe Biden and his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu held phone talks on Sunday, where the two exchanged their opinions on the ongoing hostage and ceasefire negotiations and Israel's planned offensives in Rafah. While it's unknown what the Israeli leader said about operations in Rafah, it's presumed that Netanyahu expressed his intent to go ahead with an attack if there's no ceasefire and hostage agreement reached. According to the White House, Biden, on the other hand, reiterated his clear position that there would need to be a clear and actionable plan from Israel on how they would protect civilians in Rafah. The need for humanitarian aid for Gaza was also discussed. The talks come as Israel told the U.S. that it wouldn't launch an offensive in Rafah, where more than 1 million people are displaced, until the Biden administration had an opportunity to share its concerns. Meanwhile, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas said Sunday that the U.S. is the only country that can stop Israel from conducting its offensives in Rafah. Abbas emphasized that the offensive could force much of the Palestinian population to flee the enclave. He also said such an attack in the region would lead to the biggest catastrophe in the Palestinian people's history and force Palestinians out of Gaza. He stressed that once Israel had completed its operations in the enclave, it would then look to force Palestinians out of the occupied West Bank and into Jordan. Israel has hinted at an all-out assault on Rafah for weeks, saying its goal is to eliminate Hamas' remaining battalions in their area. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Chinese authorities have given Tesla the approval for data security checks, providing the green light that paves the way for Tesla's full self-driving in China. And the announcement was made during Tesla CEO Elon Musk's visit to Beijing, where he met with Chinese Premier Li Qiang. Yoon has the details.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk arrived in Beijing on Sunday for a surprise visit, where, according to Reuters, he is expected to discuss the rollout of full self-driving software and permission to transfer data overseas.
It's good to see electric vehicles making progress in China. All cars will be electric in the future.
During the visit, Musk met with Chinese Premier Li Qiang and said Tesla is willing to take the next step in deepening cooperation with China to achieve more win-win results, indirectly referring to Tesla's request for assistance in rolling out full self-driving in China. Premier Li told Musk that Tesla's development in China could be regarded as a successful example of U.S.-China economic and trade cooperation, affirming that China's market is always open to foreign companies. Also on Sunday, it was announced that Tesla had passed China's data security checks. The China Association of Automobile Manufacturers on Sunday published a list of 76 vehicle models that it said were compliant with China's data security requirements. Among them were Tesla's Model Y and Model 3 cars. These requirements include anonymizing facial information captured by vehicle cameras and not collecting driving-related data. Chinese car makers, including BYD and NIO, also passed this inspection, but Tesla is the only foreign automaker to do so. As a result, the possibility of Tesla introducing its full self-driving software in China has increased. Despite developing this software 4 years ago, Tesla could not roll it out in China as it could not transfer data collected in the country abroad to train its algorithms, all due to regulatory constraints. Yoon, Arirang News.
A tourist agency based in Beijing says it was told by North Korean officials that the North's Day of the Sun is no longer spoken about or celebrated. What does that mean for one of the regime's most salient anniversaries? Let's turn to Bruce Cleaner for more. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
So the Day of the Sun on April 15th is the day designated by the regime to commemorate the birth of the late founding leader Kim Il-sung. Would you say the North is no longer commemorating the anniversary?
Well, for several weeks, the regime was referring to the holiday as simply April 15th or the April holiday instead of the Day of the Sun. And the Day of the Sun had been a reference to Kim Il-sung and was used as a way of revering the sort of the godlike figure in North Korea. And it was perceived as a way of Kim Jong-un replacing his father and his grandfather's personality cult with one of his own. And recently we'd seen that Kim felt bold enough to criticize the unification policy of his predecessors and abandon them, and even destroy the reunification arch, which his father had overseen the construction of. So this was seen as a way of Kim becoming bolder, more confident in his own role, and not simply acting on the policies of his predecessors. Now, however, on April 15th, Yonhap reported that North Korean media, including Nodong Shinmun, had again referred to the day as the Day of the Sun. So we're a bit puzzled, but it was earlier seen as a way of Kim Jong-un eclipsing the Day of the Sun with his own personality cult.
Then I have to ask you, why the sudden change? I mean, they've been calling it the Day of the Sun for years, but why now?
Well, we're not sure of the reversion back to the Day of the Sun.
Right.
But certainly, I think that if we take a step back, the overall trend has been when Kim Jong-un first came into power over a decade ago, he clearly aligned himself not only with his father, but even more so with his grandfather, even imitating his dress, his haircut, his mannerisms, because Kim Il-sung was much more revered in North Korea than Kim Jong-il. But over the years, it seems that Kim Jong-un has become more confident, and as I said, they abandoned the unification policies. And while not undercutting the legacy of his predecessors, he doesn't necessarily refer to them as often as the past. So, he's been in power for over a decade, so he clearly is confident in his own abilities and has adopted his own policies, going even beyond those of his father and his grandfather.
Right, that does look like the case. Now, is this an unusual move by the North? I mean, has the North done similar in the past?
I don't think so. I don't remember seeing that. I believe it was 1997 that Kim Jong-il created this Day of the Sun moniker as a way of revering his father and really instilling this sense of a godlike figure. So since then, I think North Korea has continued to refer to it as the Day of the Sun. It was a major holiday, as well as a way of reinstilling loyalty by the North Korean populace with the North Korean leadership.
Right, and on top of that, what we've been following in the past few weeks is the North's space emissions, including its second spy satellite launch. Now, North Korea over the weekend reiterated its commitment to launching more reconnaissance satellites this year on top of the first one back last November. Now, is this a sign that its second launch attempt is imminent?
Well, we're never really sure when they're going to do something, even if we're pretty sure they are going to do something. So, for example, it's been over 2 years that the U.S. and South Korea first said that a seventh North Korean nuclear test was imminent. So we expected it's going to happen. We're just not sure of the timing. With the reconnaissance satellites, and I used to be a CIA imagery analyst, so imagery satellites are not geostationary. They do have to go in a polar orbit so that as they pass over a country, then they move westward to image other countries. So in order to have greater imagery coverage of, say, South Korea or the United States, North Korea would have to have several satellites up at the same time because they would be passing over a landmass at different times. So the regime has said they're going to launch, I believe, 3 more satellites this year, and that would give them greater imagery coverage of South Korea, the United States, Japan, or elsewhere.
Right. Last but not least, a North Korean delegation visited Iran last week, which many analysts saw as an opportunity for military cooperation to be discussed, just like with Moscow. Now, other experts also mentioned the North is trying to create this solidarity and a circle of friends against the U.S. Is this the case?
Well, the North Korean delegation that went to Iran was an economic delegation, and it was the highest level in 5 years. So ostensibly, they didn't talk about, or that delegation didn't talk about military cooperation. In a way, just as when we've seen the North Korean Russian interaction, we don't know what North Korea is getting in return for all the ammunition and missiles that is provided to Russia, whether it's just economic assistance, financial assistance, food and fuel, or whether there's a behind-the-curtains exchange of military technology or weaponry. Certainly, North Korea and Iran, as well as Russia, have been engaging in military cooperation for quite some time. And with Iran, it's been missile transfers predominantly for decades, initially selling missiles and then missile technology to enable Iran's indigenous missile production. So we believe there's a lot of interaction between Tehran and Pyongyang, as well as now China and Russia. So it is a axis of evil or axis of authoritarianism, and it's worrisome to South Korea, the United States, and other democratic nations.
Definitely. All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You enjoy the rest of your weekend there.
Thank you very much.
Tottenham striker Son Heung-min scored his 16th league goal of the season and Spurs 3-2 loss to North London rival Arsenal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday. But despite the home advantage, It was all Arsenal in the first half, with the visitors leading by 3 goals at the break. Tottenham's fortunes improved in the second half when Spurs defender Christian Romero pulled one back in the 64th minute before Son gave some hope of a comeback through an 87th minute penalty. That wasn't to be, though. The loss means Tottenham stays in the 5th place, while Arsenal remains top of the English Premier League. Spring is a classical music season here in Korea. The oldest out of Korea's 3 major classical music festivals, the Symphony Festival with Hwana, took place last week. And the youngest, the Seoul Spring Festival of Chamber Music, is still ongoing for classical music lovers out there to enjoy. Our cultural correspondent Song Yoo-jin has more.
The youngest of Korea's big 3 classical music festivals is back. The Seoul Spring Festival of Chamber Music has returned for its 19th edition. The orchestrator is first-generation classical musician and violinist Kang Dong-seok. Back in 2006, Kang teamed up with the Seoul city government to turn his dream into reality.
That was one of my dreams, that to start something in Korea. And this kind of festival exists everywhere in the world, you know, and in any major cities they would have this kind of, you know, very specific festival devoted to chamber music. So.
But SSF isn't just about performances. It's about breaking down barriers, especially in chamber music, and making classical tunes accessible to everyone.
I think it's just they have some kind of, you know, cliche that chamber music is difficult and not accessible and all that, but I think that's completely wrong, so we have to try to prove that, you know.
Joining Kang this year are 59 musicians in perfect harmony under the theme All in the Family. The lineup includes performances from families of musicians to ensembles who forged tight bonds through years of collaboration. Among the performers is Matthew Dufour, former principal flutist at the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra.
It's quite intense, but it's always such a great opportunity to see old colleagues, you know, and to meet also new ones. And I have to say, in Korea, there are so many fantastic young musicians, and so that's why it's exciting. It's kind of
SSF's impact goes beyond the stage. Throughout the festival's nearly 2-decade run, Korea has seen a rise in chamber music festivals across the country.
Festivals like SSF are really making classical music more accessible by offering the public a series of top-notch performances. Also, with more festivals popping up and increased funding from both the public and private sectors, they're able to attract better artists and put on more captivating shows in proper venues.
For those who wish to explore the world of classical music, the Seoul Spring Festival of Chamber Music runs until May 5th. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
The visually impaired have been limited to text printed in Braille, with restrictions on access to digital material. But a team of South Korean researchers has now developed a tactile display that may open doors to a digital medium for the visually impaired. Our Yoon has the details.
Bumps appear on this black display. Its stiffness is firm enough to be noticeable by touch, but disappears in 2 to 3 seconds. The height of the bumps can be controlled in 14 levels from 0.1 millimeters to 1.4 millimeters, as well as the stiffness from rigid to rubbery. This is a tactile display developed by a team of South Korean researchers. What's unique about it is that the polymer material used is merely the thickness of human hair, and the display doesn't need an electronic circuit.
The lack of a circuit board increases its durability because it makes the display less prone to physical impact.
The top layer of this morphable display is made of material that generates heat when exposed to light. And this layer is covered with a film that is rigid, but at a temperature above 50 degrees Celsius becomes rubbery. With added air pressure under the display layer, the bumps appear according to the LED light pressure.
Our goal is to increase the number of tactile sounds to 5,000 for the expression of high-resolution graphics.
This research was featured in the international academic journal Nature Communications. And the research team added that this technology could not only be applied to electronic devices that help the visually impaired, but could also add touch to the metaverse. Yoon, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Xiang, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. We begin today in China, where a tornado struck the city of Guangzhou on Saturday, killing at least 5 and injuring 33. According to Xinhua news agency, local authorities reported damage to 141 factory buildings, but no residential houses were destroyed. Chinese authorities reported that the tornado hit the city's Baiyun district at around 3 p.m. local time on Saturday, with a maximum wind speed of 20.6 meters per second. As of 10 p.m. local time, search and rescue efforts were practically concluded. China's southern Guangdong province, with a population of some 127 million, saw flood damage from record rainfall for April, leading to the relocation of at least 110,000 people last week. Moving over to Cambodia, a mass cremation ceremony took place on Sunday following the deaths of 20 soldiers in an ammunition warehouse explosion on Saturday. Cambodia's Defense Minister Thea Seha and Deputy Prime Minister Hun Mani, along with the deceased soldiers' families, paid their final respects in a mass coffin ignition ceremony. The blast on Saturday in Chibar Mon in Kampong Speu province damaged 4 military buildings and 25 civilian houses nearby. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet said he was deeply shocked by the blast and announced $20,000 of financial support for families of each of the dead soldiers, while offering $5,000 for each of the injured troops. No explanation has been given yet for the explosion. A zoo in northern France has welcomed the births of 2 rare Sumatran tiger cubs. The cubs, Rimba and Toba, each weighing some 4.2 kilograms, made their home at the Amiens Metropole Zoo a month after their birth on March 22nd. Rimba and Toba are the second set of cubs from Menya, Amiens Zoo's female tiger, who was paired with a male Sumatran tiger, Argo, under the European breeding program of Sumatran tigers. The tigers, native to the Indonesian island of Sumatra, are on the IUCN's red list of critically endangered species, with fewer than 400 remaining in the wild. There are 125 captive Sumatran tigers in zoos in Europe. Around 100 babies gathered at Tokyo's Sensoji Temple on Sunday for the Nakizumo Crying Baby Festival. In a unique event to wish the babies good health and well-being, wrestlers from Nihon University's sumo club attempted to make the babies cry, with the baby that cries first being declared the winner. Opposing babies are carried by sumo wrestlers who gently try to induce tears from the babies. Japanese folklore believes that a crying baby can ward off evil spirits, while a loud cry indicates a strong and healthy child. The Asakusa Tourism Federation organized the first crying baby sumo event at the Sensoji Temple in 1991.
Good morning. We need an umbrella for the southern regions and a hat and sunblock for the upper parts of the country. Rain clouds are dropping heavier rain on Jeju and the south coast this morning. Rain advisory on Jeju Island was lifted, but please brace for heavy showers. The resort island and the south coast could see up to 60 millimeters through tomorrow morning. The rest of the south will see 5 to 40 millimeters of showers. Rain will bring down the highs today. It could be more than 10 degrees lower in many places, especially those on the south coast. So please hold on to your morning jacket. However, the capital area will see highs only going down a couple of degrees, while skies will also get much sunnier as the day goes on, with an expected high of 26 degrees Celsius here in the capital. Gwangju topping out at 19 degrees, which is about 10 degrees lower than yesterday. Then there will be passing rain in southern regions through the middle of this week, but it will also get warmer and sunnier as we head towards the 3-day Children's Day weekend. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.